I am not a machinist by far. In fact, I have very little overall experience working with metals, but I do know that I enjoy it, and I increasingly want to incorporate metal into my builds. For me, one of the best metals to work with, simply because of its workability, is aluminum. I can use my table saw, I can use my bandsaw, of course. Even the router works well on aluminum. There are a few things you need to watch out for, though, when you're doing it. Slower rates of speed are always important. You don't want it to catch or bind, particularly on the table saw. So feeding it in at a slow rate, even slower than you would hardwoods, for example. Eye protection, of course, always. Full face shield sometimes when it's really spitting out chips. I like to make sure that I'm well protected. This is one that's just over an 1/8 inch in thickness. That's commonly as high as I go. You can go up to a 1/4 inch, maybe even more. One thing you do have to watch out for is the really thin stuff. This is fantastic plate aluminum. I think it's for signs. It has a nice powder coated finish on one side, even a protective cover. Peel that off, it's beautiful underneath. But it's really thin. It's about a 1/16 inch thick. You can't run that through the table saw. Even on the bandsaw, it might start chattering. So I like to always include a backer on it like this. Here's a piece that I had cut. This is just an offcut of it. It's that aluminum, but I have it double-sided taped to a piece of 1/4 inch plywood. And that keeps it really safe. It runs through the table saw beautifully. You can get it down to the shape you want, and then you can peel that off. Or in some applications, like I've done, you end up laminating it to the wood to have a nice smooth metal exterior with the added thickness and workability of wood. In terms of cutting aluminum with your woodworking tools, I use my regular 40-tooth woodworker blade in my table saw. Yeah, it's gonna dull it, but I'm not running that much aluminum through it. And frankly, woods like plywood, engineered lumber, can dull your blade incredibly quickly too. So keep that in mind when you're going to be working with aluminum. Same with router bits. I'm not using wicked expensive bits, but I do like to use the better carbide tipped ones. For the bandsaw, yeah, you wanna make sure you have a fine tooth band blade in there. Think hacksaw, right? And so you have a large number of teeth per inch. As for that, finishing it, you can sand aluminum. Don't breathe the dust in. You don't want all that dust in your system, aluminum dust. I'm finally getting ready to make my low clearance insert for my table saw. It's where the curve, the width of the blade is all that you have here. So you can cut really narrow strips on your table saw. You can make some nice ones out of 1/4 inch plywood or medium density fiberboard, but I want one that's adjustable. The steel one that came with my table saw has these 4 set screws that allow you to adjust the level within the deck of the table saw. And I think that's just cool. And I like working with this stuff and learning more about it. And so this is gonna be a great application for me to experiment and try some new things that I haven't done before. I'm going to use 1/8 inch thick aluminum plate. And I'm gonna cut this out. And I'm first gonna cut it on the table saw, but then I'm gonna finish it with the router. How well it'll go? I don't know. If one of the next videos you see from me is me doing this, it probably means I was successful at it. If not, I might share it too, just to show you where I screwed up. Don't be afraid to experiment with aluminum.